Every thought you've ever had, every word you have ever spoken, everyone you will ever meet, in fact, every atomic configuration and process that has and ever will exist, from the turnings of galaxies to the bowel movements of gorillas, is part of a complex adaptive system that is incorporated into countless Panarchies. Hello, everyone. I'm Benjamin Karlson, and for the next 6 minutes, I'll be speaking to you about a topic I'm absolutely fascinated with: Panarchy and scale. I hope I can pass some of my zeal on to you. I'll be covering question A from this week's study guide: identify and describe a Panarchy, comprising of at least 3 complex adaptive systems. Over the last 3 weeks, everyone should have established at least a rudimentary understanding of what a complex adaptive system is. Here is a brief recap. In order for a system to be a complex adaptive system, it must fulfill 3 criteria. It must incorporate components that are both independent and interacting. There must be some selection process occurring upon these components and on the products of local interactions. And finally, there must be a constant intake of novelty and variation to this system via either existing components altering or the addition of new ones. The standard cyclic progression of the complex adaptive system is one that moves through 4 phases: exploitation, conservation, release, and reorganization, although other variations do sometimes occur. A standard example of such a system is that of a forest. The R phase consists of early successional or pioneer species. The system then moves into its K phase, which consists of late successional or climax species. Via perturbations such as a bushfire, the forest then moves into its omega phase. This then flows into the alpha stage, where the system is reorganized with a potentially different species configuration. Within the aforementioned forest, there exist smaller and faster, in terms of space and time, complex adaptive systems, such as a stand of trees, within which even smaller and faster levels exist, like a single tree, and smaller and finer again, such as a single leaf, and so on. There are also scales larger and slower than the forest, such as the biome of the entire continent or the Earth's biosphere. This structure of systems on different scales was originally referred to as a hierarchy. The term hierarchy, however, brings to mind an increase in significance as the focus shifts from the smaller, finer levels to the larger, coarser ones. As this does not apply, a new word was created in order to avoid this stigma. Buzz Holling and Lance Gunderson coined the term Panarchy, a hybrid of the word hierarchy and the Greek god Pan. Pan, the half-goat, half-man, is the Greek god of nature and paradoxically mischief. Because of this, he encapsulates the idea of creative destruction, an essential element of the complex adaptive systems cycle. Panarchy, a term devised to describe evolving hierarchical systems with multiple interrelated elements, offers an important new framework for understanding and resolving this dilemma. Panarchy is in a structure in which systems, including those of nature and of humans, as well as combined human-natural systems, are interlinked in continual adaptive cycles of growth, accumulation, restructuring, and renewal. As stated in the previous quote, all complex adaptive systems, whether they be environmental, social, or economic, are not isolated from one another, but rather interconnected, having direct effects upon the levels above and below them, forming a network. This is achieved through 2 processes. When a higher level affects a lower level, it is known as remember. Likewise, when a lower level affects a high level, it is called revolt. These are cross-scale effects. In a typical situation, it is the larger, slower levels that affect the smaller, faster ones. The effects of a small level upon a larger one are usually quite small, however there are exceptions. When a high level is heading towards its state of release, collapsing, it becomes more vulnerable to impacts from faster levels. When this process occurs, it is known as revolt. A perturbation or disturbance at one level may therefore have repercussions that cascade up through the Panarchy. An example of this, following from the earlier one given, would be the fire that pushed the forest from its conservation phase into its release phase. This fire may have begun when a single tree, a relatively small, fast, complex adaptive system, was struck by lightning. If the surrounding forest is extremely dry from a drought, low resilience, the fire then spreads to engulf the entire forest, a higher, slower, larger level. The inverse of this situation, when conditions in a larger, slower system impact on a smaller, faster system nested within it, is known as remember or the system's memory. This is the usual trajectory for interlevel interactions within a Panarchy. The depth and complexity of a system's memory is what determines how closely the smaller cycles within it follow their previous path. An illustration of remembering is the drought from the previous example. The climate of a region is in itself a complex adaptive system. If it were to shift, to become hotter and drier, the systems nested within it, like the forest, will experience obvious repercussions, such as a decrease in resilience, making them more susceptible to revolt from a lower scale, such as the fire. In order to further cement the elaborate concept that is Panarchies within your mind, I will now give you some additional examples. While I feel that the model of a forest as part of an environmental Panarchy is the most rudimentary, and thus most easily conceptualized, by giving you a social and economic Panarchy, I may broaden your understanding. A group of friends in Newcastle is a fairly fast, small level of a social panarchy. This would be nested within the local community, Newcastle as a whole, which in turn is within the larger, slower, complex adaptive system of the entire state of New South Wales. Larger levels would include Australia as a continent and then the global community at large. Each scale is a complex adaptive system in its own right, able to interact with all other levels with profound impacts. Here is an easy to grasp economic example of a panarchy. A small business is a small, fast level. This is nested within the region's economy. A larger level. This system is in turn within the larger, coarser, complex adaptive system that is Australia's economy, which is nested within, on an even larger scale, the global economy. Using the idea of complex adaptive systems and panarchies as a filter through which you view the world opens up limitless applications. Everything in existence is interconnected, and by increasing global understanding of this, true sustainability will no longer be an unattainable ideal, but become a reality. Thanks everyone for listening to my ramble. I hope I've been able to shed some light and further your understanding at least a little. I by no means have a complete understanding of the intricate concept that is panarchies, but throughout this week we will continue our learning together through this online discussion. I look forward to hearing your thoughts.